Hello and welcome to Ask Miss MYRZ, where we answer your most burning questions and solve your most nagging problems. I may not know all the answers, but I know someone who will. And because many of you asked, and because there have been reports of quarantine quarreling among couples on the rise, whether they are cooped up together 24/7 or have been in an LDR. Today we're addressing the top 5 COVID couple fights and how to resolve them, as explained by today's guest, relationship coach, life skills and conflict resolution trainer and therapist. Please welcome Aileen Santos.
Hey
Hi, Aileen.
guys! Hello, Miss Mears.
How are you? Oh, Miss Mears pa rin.
And a mother.
Aileen and I worked together in Summit Media once upon a
Yes.
time, and thus
Yeah.
Miss Mears. I cannot escape it anymore. I'll just call you Miss Aileen.
Yes. Or Coach Aileen. Yeah.
Coach
And
Aileen.
your viewers can also call me Coach Aileen.
And how are you today? Lots of patience.
Fine. We're fine. Still at home as usual.
And so is it indeed a fact that couple fights are on the rise? I've read about some reports, like I know that in Wuhan there was a spike in the divorce rate
Yes.
after the first wave, and
Yes.
I see so many articles, well, American articles about all these people divorcing. What's the situation in your experience?
Okay. Well, on one hand, whenever a crisis happens, that's when uh, a relationship is really tested. And even in the dynamics of a relationship, though, fights are not something that are unusual, because even in a family, you grow up together, right? You have siblings, you have your parents, and you know you love them. But even in a family, there will be fights. There will always be conflict. And whenever something different happens, like what happened with the crisis, with the pandemic, and then the quarantines that are happening, that those are major changes that happen in our lives. So of course all our major and close relationships will be affected. In fact, when there is conflict, that's actually a sign that you are already in a mature stage of your relationship. Because if you're not if you're not that intimate or close yet, you're not sure yet about the other person's love for you, then you are very afraid to cause conflict. So conflicts are expected in all relationships, but whenever there is a crisis, whenever there's a major change that affects the dynamic of the relationship, then we can expect fights and these things,
So
all of these
fighting per
things.
se is not a bad thing. So because
Yes.
they say that nako, away sila ng away, parang it's not a good thing, or this other couple hindi nag-aaway. So it's not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. It's a healthy thing.
Fights are expected. It's not parang life, diba? Life is not fair or unfair. It's just life. So in the same way, yeah, parang life is not out to get you. In the same way, fights are expected in all relationships. I mean, yun nga, if you fight, even twins now who were technically soulmates, they were born the same day, they were in the womb the same time, they fight, they have their fight. So fights are part of relationships. But yun nga, if there are extreme fights though, yung parang away ng away, that's not a good sign. And then I don't believe either that there are couples who never fight. There will be situations that they will be discussing. And in fact, one of the things that I always tell my coaches is that when you're in a relationship, one skill that you really have to develop is your conflict resolution skills. It's needed for your family of origin. It's needed for your romantic relationship. It's needed for the office, conflict resolution skills. If you don't have that, and if you don't develop that, and if you don't develop yourself so that you are able to handle conflicts, then there's a lot of growth that you are missing out on. And you will have a lot of broken relationships because you didn't form or you didn't develop better conflict resolution skills. In
So
short,
when
the way that you fight as a child and as a teenager should be different. Dapat improve na the way you fight now with
So
with the people around you.
there's actually a way to fight and develop fighting skills.
Not fighting.
Or I don't know, conflict resolution
resolution skills.
skills.
And in
So
fact, I can
sometimes,
give you the basic important mindset for conflict resolution. And this is the basic mindset. Instead of you versus the other person, it's going to be you plus the person, and then you are teaming up together. You are teaming up together so that you face the obstacle or the challenge or the problem
oh,
as a team.
okay,
So instead of him versus her, it becomes a team, and then the problem is identified. And that's something that also a lot of people are. That's a basic skill a lot of people have to develop. Identify what the problem is, so that you can work on it together. Instead of thinking he didn't do this, she didn't do that,
right,
so the conflict is going to be between the couple. But if you realize that you're on the same team, then you can two heads, and
right.
you are growing your relationship at the same time.
Because we also live in a very non-confrontational society, right? Filipinos
Yeah,
are we're known to, or maybe we grow up avoiding conflict. Diba?
avoiding, and that
I
doesn't.
don't want to
Yeah, that doesn't
fight.
help us. Yeah, that doesn't help us because we're just pushing the conflict under the rug, and then we don't develop the conflict resolution skills.
So
Avoidance
maybe
skills ang meron tayo.
so we should not be afraid to have conflict. It's inevitable
Yes,
in
it's
all our
inevitable. So,
relationships, whether romantic or working
with
relationships,
parents, with parents,
with
with siblings.
parents, right? And
Yes,
avoiding conflict is not gonna help. And I'm sure people are so excited to find out what
the top five
the
are.
top five stars. So we're gonna give them to you in countdown form.
Yes, in countdown form. From the relatively mild to the more stressful ones, to the more
Okay,
difficult ones.
relatively mild. So
Yeah,
let's start.
relatively, because it's still stressful, but it on in the ranks it's more relatively mild.
Wait, sorry. Before I unveil the five, I forgot to ask you about. So Eileen is a relationship coach. Forgot
Yes,
the
I
background.
forgot.
And how long have you been a relationship coach?
Okay, so I got my certification as a coach in 2008. 2008.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was also around the time that I finished my master's in counseling psychology. So I did both of that at the same time. So I took my master's in counseling psychology, and then I also got certified as a coach so that I can do both. If some people are sometimes asking me, what's the difference between a coach and a counselor or a psychologist or a therapist? A coach is someone, like in sports, you have a goal, and the coach helps you to reach that goal. And the coach also helps you assess what your weaknesses are, just like in sports. You get a coach not when you've been defeated in the championship. You get a coach before you get into the fights that you want to win, so that you know your strengths, you know what you need to prepare for. So that's what a coach does. Meanwhile, a counselor is someone who uh, helps you get unstuck. If you have a direction that you want to go to, you know that you want to do this, you want to be better at this, but you keep going back to your old habits, to your old ways of reacting and feeling, then there's something that you need to review and discover about your subconscious, your past, and then resolve those things so that you can get unstuck. So getting unstuck is where the counselor can help you, because these things you don't your friends are not going they're going to listen to you, but they're not equipped to help you get unstuck. And also, even when you have a goal, your friends also have goals that they're not achieving, right? Like fitness, all of these goals that
Right, right.
we know that we want, but we need a bit of extra help in order to get to what we want, because there are certain things that we need to start doing that a coach or a counselor can help point out and help you practice and maybe even follow up on how you are growing in those directions.
Right. Why and how did you decide to specialize in relationships?
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Well, actually, I did not even think about counseling and coaching before, although my interest was in psychology because I started out writing articles for magazines.
Right.
So and also writing fiction. So my purpose back then for psychology was to understand people better so that I could create better characters. And then what happened was when I started writing how-to articles, self-help articles, that's where I felt the fulfillment. That people were writing and telling me that, oh, this advice changed them. This was so helpful. This helped them make this kind of decision. So I took my master's in counseling psychology. And then when I started practicing as a registered guidance counselor, I was just meeting people in general. And then what I realized was that most most problems really are based on relationship issues. And relationship issues could be about your relationship with yourself, your relationship with your family, your immediate family, or your friends, or your romantic partner. And then it was in 2010 that I started my first, because I was seeing so many commonalities between the relationship problems. And in my head I was thinking, why do people not know this? So I started relationship workshops in 2010, and that's when I really focused on relationships because not a lot of people know how to handle their relationships because people think that just like financial literacy, right? You think that because you used to have you handle money on a daily basis and you have parents who handled money, you think that, oh, I have all the information that I need to handle my finances. But just like with relationships, you think that because you have parents, you had a family, so you should know how a family should function or how a marriage is supposed to be like. But the truth is, we all have different experiences. So uh, I help people really, first of all, discern who is a match for them, the partners who are a real match for them. Discern what real love is, because a lot of people mistake so many things for real love. So they think that it's love, but it's really not. Sometimes it's just codependent. Sometimes it's just
Right.
other subconscious issues. And then also, how do they grow their relationship? So that's a process. So first, they need to know what kind of partner is a match for them. They find that partner, they grow their relationship, and they make sure to maintain that relationship. All of these need lifelong relationship skills. And the reason why finally decided that, okay, this is important, is that um, when people have better relationship skills, they have happier marriages. And when they have
Right.
happier marriages, they build stronger families. And what I know for sure is that what the world needs now is stronger families, because a lot of the hurt that is happening right now among people comes from woundedness from the family of origin. So if we can address the issues of good relationship skills, happier marriages, stronger families, then there will be a lot less wounded people in the future. So that's my goal.
Wow. Wow. Saving the world one couple at a time. So maybe we
Yeah.
can start right here by
Yes, yes.
giving them number 5.
Okay. Number
Number 5
5.
is different communication
Okay,
needs.
so this
Right.
is uh, the uh, the number 5 reason why most couples have been fighting during this pandemic, during this the COVID, and this actually applies largely to those who are suddenly in a long distance relationship, because there are couples who are not a match for long distance relationships. They didn't plan to have a long distance relationship. They had this routine of seeing each other or talking to each other, and then uh, maybe twice a week go out with each other and touch base with each other, and then all of a sudden they had to be apart for like 3 months or more.
Right.
Yeah, 3 months. And then sometimes one partner, actually a lot of the time, one partner will have a different rhythm for communication than the other person. And we know that for a lot of couples know that this has been happening even before the pandemic, even before the quarantines. It's just that it's been exacerbated right now with the sudden long distance situation. So different communication needs. One partner might need to touch base or communicate more regularly or more often than the other partner, and that is a cause for fighting.
Right.
So just like with how do we resolve this, just like with our basic, we're always going to go back to that basic mindset of instead of thinking that I need this but you need this, so we're at odds with each other. So that's not the way to resolve the situation. What we need to do is you partner with each other. You have to be able to identify your own needs, share it with your partner, and you have to also honor the fact that your partner has his or her needs as well. So you also, it's not just one person's need over the other. You have to know that both of your needs are valid. So one might need more communication, one might need less communication, and then you have to partner up with each other, team up, and say, okay, babe, we have a different rhythm in terms of communication needs. So it's not you're so clingy and then oh you're so cold. No, we don't do
Oh,
that. So no name calling. Instead, how do we solve this? We have a different rhythm for our communication. So where do we meet halfway so
what are
that
some
we
concrete examples of this disparity? Like besides frequency, maybe they can have a schedule, or if you are trapped together under one roof,
okay.
how does this manifest?
Okay, so we talked about if you're far apart, right? But if you're
Yes,
trapped
yes.
under, you're quarantined together. One thing that we also need to remember, especially for those who are quarantined together, even when you're in a small space, and a lot of people suddenly find themselves because usually you don't notice it. You didn't notice it before when the quarantine wasn't happening, right? You always went out. There was
Right,
like it
right.
was like your backyard was the vicinity of your neighborhood, and all of a sudden there's just this 28 square meter condo unit that you're in. So
Right,
you have to find your own space because even when you're together, you also need time apart,
right.
and you have to work out which space is yours and which space is his. It's going to be a challenge, but it could be something as simple as okay, during the daytime, I'll be in the bedroom, you'll be in the living room, okay, and then afterwards we meet each other in the dining area, and then we have time together in on the balcony. Okay,
So
so
date muna tayo sa kitchen,
sa
ganyan.
kitchen or sa balcony, because even the common lounge areas right now, you don't know how safe they are, right?
Right, right.
In a condo, in a complex. So you really have to identify what the problem is. So it's simply different communication needs or different needs for amount of space and me time, and then you work around those things by honoring what both partners want. So
How about
there will be a bit of
communication?
sacrifice for from each other, so that you can honor, you identify what you really need, so that your priority needs would be, your partner could help with your priority needs.
So you have to like sit down and kind of negotiate it,
Yes,
right?
it is a
And
negotiation.
agree upon it. What about communication styles? Like I don't know if this is a valid stereotype or not, but most men are want to say, "I'm here, aren't I? What more do you need? I'm here with you 24/7.
Yes,
What more do you need from me?" And the girl will
that's
be like,
a yeah, that's
"But
a
you're here,
male
but you're
female
not
thing.
really here." Sorry, may hugot ba?
Okay.
What about a disparity in styles?
Yeah, that's a thing, but then again, it's like what we mentioned, that you are, all relationships are based on I actually tell people all relationships are intercultural relationships,
Right, right.
because you don't, you come from a different family and they have different styles. I mean, even if like two people, they think that they both like adobo, but the one person's adobo is sweet and one person's adobo is salty. And it's like they're both Filipino. So communication styles, these are things that, it's a balance of knowing what you need and asking for what you need, knowing why you need something. And if it's important to you, then your partner really has to know that. But at the same time, you also need to accept that your partner is this completely different human being who is not a clone of you. And you have to really balance. That's why you identify your priorities. What's important to him, what's important to you. And then, like, just like that classic conversation that you just mentioned, I'm here, aren't I? You have to ask, but then again, there's also this insight. The thing that attracted you most at the onset of your relationship, that's the thing that you will also really be pissed about the most. Like, so many women would say, "Oh, I love him. He's not clingy. He's the strong, silent type." So that's like year number one. Year number five, it's, why are you not talking? Why are you not sharing anything? Because you picked the strong, silent type. And then
Right.
other side of the coin, some girls, they fall in love with a guy who shares their feelings and so in touch and so sensitive. And then 5 years later, why are you so sensitive? Are you the baby of the relationship? So it's an acceptance of our differences. Our strengths are also our weaknesses. So that's part of it. That's the part of, a fact of relationship and a fact of life.
It's like that play, I love you, you're perfect, now change. Okay, let's go to
Number four.
top couple, top COVID couple fight number 4. Different love languages.
So this is another one of those things that, you already find evidence of them on a regular basis when, the regular relationship, when the pandemic hadn't happened yet. But now that the pandemic is here, whether you're cooped up together or you're far apart from each other, it's more obvious. So for those who are not familiar yet with the love languages, there are 5. So it's acts of service, words of affirmation, quality time, touch, and gifts. Okay, so there are 5, and the person who identified them was Dr. Gary Chapman. He's also a psychologist. He's been dealing with couples for more than 30 years now, and what he realized is this: a lot of couples fight not because they don't love each other anymore. It's just that they have different ways of expressing their love. So that's why he came up with the idea of the 5 love languages. In fact, if you want to find out your own love language, you can just go to 5lovelanguages.com. This is a free thing. There's a test there. You can have your partner test himself or herself as well. And the importance of this is for you just to understand why you need certain things that your partner doesn't seem to understand. And I've received a lot of times I've received this question. People ask me, so Coach Aileen, to have a happy relationship, should I find someone with the same love language? And I tell them, no, you don't need to find someone with the same love language to have a happy relationship. You need to find someone who actually loves you for you. Because what happens is, even though you have different love languages, the love may be real and the acceptance may be real, and you might have the so many other important things that are necessary for a relationship to grow. And the love language, remember, it's just a language. I mean, a lot of Filipinos right now are into K dramas. We don't understand Korean, but there are subs, and that's how it works. Like with the love languages, you don't need to be fluent in that person's love language for you to have a happy relationship. You need to just have an appreciation for his or her love language and acknowledge that and reach out to your partner in his or her language whenever necessary. So you don't have to change your partner's love language. You don't have to change your partner's love language. But it's like if your love language is words of affirmation. Okay, I'm going to mention. Remember your question earlier, Miss Mears, the you're here but not here. So
Yeah.
most likely, the woman who said her love language is quality time. Her idea uh, of of being a loving partner is you'll be in the balcony just sitting together
Gazing
talking
at the
about
moonlight.
the stars, talking about nothing but being present for each other, that's quality time. Okay. But meanwhile, for him, and most guys are, their love language is acts of service. So for them, like if they're working hard and they're doing their best, they're battling every day. They go out battling COVID for you. So they're making a living and they're trying to provide for you. For them, that is proof that they love you. So for them, they're doing that because they do love you. So we just have to appreciate, for those who have other love languages, we do not minimize the fact that they are doing this because that's how they are loving us. And we need to appreciate that. And at the same time, we need to, maybe if you feel that your love language is not being understood by your partner, like you're trying to love him by talking to him, spending time with him, and he doesn't see that as, he feels that he can love you better if he were providing for you more, then you can tell him, oh, you know what, if you just do this, let's just spend 15 minutes on the balcony talking with each other and I'll be happy. Then that's you communicating that, okay, this is my love language, just do this and I will appreciate you as well. The fact of the matter, at the bottom line of the different love languages is this: you don't have to have the same love language, you just need to have real love for each other and appreciate and connect using the other person's love language occasionally. But
So I
then
think
appreciate them, appreciate their love language, recognize when they're trying to love you in their own love language, and then also communicate that you are also trying to love them in your own love language. So that's it. The love is
have you
more.
have you seen couples actually change? Like, of course, if let's say it doesn't come naturally for
Yeah.
partner A, let's say, to express love more like partner B, how hard does it get? Like, if it's not natural and it's more of like making such an effort, is that difficult? Do you
It's
find
it's
that
also
it can
acceptance.
work?
Like, a lot of times you end up adapting, or you realize, like, if one person's love language is words, so most likely this person will give cards with really really long messages in it, and then the other partner would just say, okay, thank you, and then that's it. So then you have to accept that they appreciate it, it's just that it's not their love language. So one skill that we need to have is not to be so offended. Acceptance comes with, you know because we might interpret that as, he doesn't love me, he did not appreciate what I did. But if you realize that, you simply remind yourself it's not his love language, fact is he does love me, then you can be less offended by things like that. So it's really not about changing, it's just about accepting and honoring and acknowledging the other person's love language. As long as the love is there, and the love, you're in a truly loving relationship, eventually what I've seen happen to a lot of couples, so in the long term, like after 20 years, is that they have a different, they both develop an inclination towards a third love language. Like, maybe one partner used to be acts of service, the other partner used to be words. Now they both have the love language of touch. So they
Okay.
love hugging each other, and they develop that through the years of being in a relationship.
So they evolve also in their
Yes, and that's the
means
point of
of
relationships as
expression.
well. If you do not go into a relationship, thinking that you're perfect and you're ready made, you are going to evolve. You're going to allow your partner to influence you, and you need to be with a partner who allows himself to be influenced by you as well. That's a
You
key to relationships.
right. You mentioned earlier that uh, parang a lot of LDRs are kind of in danger or breaking up because
Yeah, there are a
it's
lot
really
of
hard to probably,
sudden LDRs, yes,
I don't know,
especially
like,
those, because there are people who are really not a match for LDRs. Okay, especially something as indefinite as this. Okay, if That's why there are people who are in LDR, and then I tell them, okay, this is what you need. First of all, you need to know when the long distance situation is going to end. You have to have a timeline. And then when are your scheduled times for really seeing each other, being together? And then you have to have your rituals of communicating with each other. You have to have your schedules. It might seem unromantic and not that exciting because it's not spontaneous, but you have to have very specific schedules for communicating with each other because you're in a different situation. You're in a long distance relationship. But then all of a sudden, a lot of people are in sudden LDRs. The ones who are having trouble the most are the ones who have the love language of touch. They need
Right,
hugs. They
right,
really, really
right,
need hugs. So they are the ones a lot of people are getting depressed right now because, especially those who are living alone.
right.
So the one before I would advise people like, well, to get a pet, but if you were caught in the pandemic and you had no pet back then,
Right.
so that's not solution. And also those whose love language is touch, one of the things where they can refill their love tank sana was to get massages so that they don't feel, they don't crave touch from someone else. But then
Right,
again, that's another thing that we can't even do right now. I mean, I
right.
so miss massages right now, the professional ones, like the real ones,
And even
massages.
with technology helping, what if you're not an expressive person? If you're not good with words, let's say you're
Yes.
not a talker and you're not a writer,
Yes,
what are
exactly.
you gonna do? So
And then there are a
how
lot of miscommunications happening because we don't see we're not always able to convey what we mean just through words and all of these things. And people are not everyone has the same skill level, like you said. Not all people are good communicators. They still love you, but they're not good communicators. So uh, just two things here in terms of different love languages. Number one is really you really need, especially those who are not good with words. It's a fact right now that you have to step up because that's the major mode of communication right now. I mean, all of the schools right now are
right,
adapting, so
right,
you just need to adapt, especially if
right,
this relationship is important to you. And then second, uh, there is a learning curve. So if you're on the other end of, you're on the other side, you're the other partner, you're the one who's good with words, but your partner is not, and then you're feeling bereft, you're feeling like there's something missing in our relationship. Yes, there's something missing because it's not normal times. So we need to allow to be a bit more patient and understanding as you both grow and adjust to this new and different situation. That's why, on the other hand, what this also is showing me is that, like, a lot of singles that I was coaching before, though, before the pandemic, they were complaining that a lot of the relationships that they were forming were pretty shallow. Like, it
mhm.
was just it wasn't even relationships. They were mostly hookups.
Okay,
And so what's happening right now is that this situation that has forced us to step up in terms of our communication skills is actually filtering away the shallowness. So now
right.
you can't, if you really want to build a relationship, you can't be shallow. Now, even if you swipe right, you can't have a hookup in today's situation, right?
Right.
So what happens is relationships are tested, and then you are forced to develop your communication skills and relationship skills. And then third is that any relationship that survives this is really a relationship that's worth it. So,
Wow.
because you've taken away the shallow parts, those
Right,
shallow parts that you don't notice because when you're together, there's this chemistry,
right,
there are
right.
these sparks, and you don't even realize that you have nothing to talk about. You don't even realize that you hate each other's guts because because he's cute, she's hot, those
Right,
things.
right.
But then because of these sudden LDRs, you take away those things, and then you really have to get to know the person for who he or she is. And you have to see, is this person making an effort? And am I making an effort? So if you both make an effort and this relationship survives, then it's a good relationship to fight for.
So you have no choice but to learn how to be verbal.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
learn how to banter.
yes. Especially, I mean, like all students right now have to learn how to do online learning now.
Right.
And that's a reality. It's not something that's anyone's fault except China's. But then, instead of, spending an entire year saying, I'm not going to adjust, it's China's fault, I'm not going to do anything, I'm not going to change, I'm going to wait for what I know to come back, then you are going to be wasting an entire year
Right.
instead of you evolving and moving on with your life. And in this case, with your relationship.
Right. Okay, let's go to number 3.
Division.
Division of labor.
Okay, so obviously these are really common complaints that I'm getting, especially from married couples with children. So a lot of I'm also part of Facebook groups that are composed of wives and moms, and a lot of them, I'm actually surprised, in fact, that a lot of them are complaining about their husbands who are not helping out. Okay, so my take here, okay, my initial take here is that on one hand, you know before you get married, you already get to know someone, right? You already get to know the person. Supposedly you get to know this person that you're about to marry, and then it should not come as a surprise to you if this person is not someone you can rely on in terms of chores or basic life skills. This isn't, a person doesn't suddenly get married and then lose all his life skills altogether. Okay, 100% of the time you would know if he has life skills or not, if he can cook, if he will do chores, if he will clean the house. You know this, and no one can tell me that, oh, but before he was. No, you know this,
Right.
but still you married this person. What actually is shocking to me is the fact that there are women who choose someone who gave all these signs of not being a person they can rely on,
And yet,
for the longest time, still marry them, and then have 3 children with them, and still get sort of surprised that, am I in a quarantine? My husband is not helping out. It's like, you're surprised. I mean, you've been with this guy for the longest time and you still do not know this. Of course, that's not going to help them because they're already tired and everything. But the basic thing about that is, if you are with a partner who is not helping out at all, like at all, you cannot rely on him for anything, then this situation is a product of your own choices. And also, it's also your choice. I mean, as much as possible, I want marriages to stay together. But if you have already done everything, like our conflict resolution skill of, babe, let's sit down. These are the things that we need to talk about. So you don't blame him. You don't call him, you stupid lazy bum, get your ass off the couch. And because he's not going to suddenly uh, feel
loving
inclined to help
towards
you
you.
out. Yes, right? I mean, no one's going to feel inclined to help you out if you make them the enemy and make them the problem. So instead, you sit down with your partner, tell them you're really having a hard time. Please help me. Let's solve this problem together. And then, if this is a good person that you marry, because sometimes there are partners like that, they're good people. It's just that maybe you lack in communicating. Maybe they thought that, or maybe this is one of the scenarios that I see in some couples. Sometimes they do try to help around the house or they do chores, but it's never good enough for you. So
Right.
you end up making them the bad person anyway, and then redoing what they did. So that doesn't really encourage anyone, your partner, to help out again. I mean, who wants to exert all this effort and just be a failure?
Right.
Okay, so you also have to, first of all, communicate what needs to be done. And second, if they get it done, they might have different standards than yours. If it gets done, then let them be. right? So if it's not going to cause any fires to the house, you don't. That's the basic thing. If the house is not burning down, then you don't need to get stressed over it. I mean, they did it, so it's fine. It's not up to your standards. But if you really want a partner in these things in the household, then you have to accept, you know, their learning curve, if you want to call it their learning curve. But then fact is, your partner will have a different way of doing things.
In
So
2020, are there still women who, I guess, enable the gender stereotyping of roles
there are,
in
and
2020?
then I hear them saying that, I still encounter women saying that, like, if they have 3 children, oh, I have a fourth child, it's my husband.
Yeah,
Okay,
they say
that is
it.
so wrong. That is so wrong, actually. I mean, first of all, if you have that perception that your husband is a child, then you most likely are treating your husband like a child. And your man will not step up if he feels like you're being his mom, right? I mean,
Or
why
if
would
you're
he?
enabling the
That
behavior,
is
like you
enabling.
find
That
it
is
cute, but then you enable it, right?
yes, that's basically enabling, because you are basically saying that I'm your mother, I'm going to take care of you. I do not think your husband married you to become so that you will become his mom. No, no guy actually wants that. Well, no emotionally healthy guy does
Okay,
that.
clarify.
Okay, clarifying. Okay,
Clarify.
yes. So you do not treat your partner as someone that you need to take care of, because it all starts with your own mindset as well. You're not accepting of your partner's capabilities. You do not trust your partner to take on this responsibility. Then you are enabling. They're
Right.
not helping you. All of the things that you're complaining about, you are enabling all of these things.
So if there's an imbalance in the division of labor, it is usually the complainer's fault because they're not sitting down to divide it equally. Is that what you're saying? Like
It's not
it's
just
in
the
your hands,
complainer's fault,
or yeah,
but you cannot say that it's just one. With all problems, it's not just one partner's fault. There's the one who's doing it, and there's the person who's enabling it. And if you've allowed it for so long, they would actually, they would wonder why you're complaining now. But then again, that's why the complainer, I don't even want to call them a complainer, because
okay,
that implies that they do not have the proper communication skills to communicate their needs,
right,
because no one listens to complaints.
right.
Your partner doesn't just want to feel like, no one wants to feel like a failure. So if your communication style is all complaining, then they are not going to really step up. They are not going to be encouraged to help you out. But if your style is communicating, sharing what you need, asking for help, and then appreciating what they're doing, then that is going to really help much more in getting things done.
Have you seen changes in some concrete examples? Like, for example, now that it's lockdown, what's like the most common complaint about uh, an imbalance in the division of
It's
labor?
really very general, but then it's really the women saying that, okay, I take care of the kids, I get them bathed, I get them ready for their online schooling, and then I do my work from home thing, and then my husband is just playing video games. That is, but then again, I have to point out that you probably, before you guys got married, he was already like this.
Right.
Yes. So
So don't wonder.
that this woman who is complaining has several choices, a lot of choices actually.
So if she did bring it up and he won't budge, like tried
Okay,
everything, what's your recommendation?
really tried everything.
Ayaw
First
pa
would
rin.
be a lot of things, like depending on their situation. Uh, you can actually, if he's really just a burden, then you can kick him out. Or
Oh,
you go to his mom, you complain, you tell his mom your son is not
return,
doing anything,
return
or
to
you get his
sender.
mom to help you out because
Oh,
her son is not doing anything, or you tell him, okay, if you're not going to do anything, uh you raise this amount of money and I'm going to hire people, I'm going to go to this app, hire people, because a lot of helpers are going back to the provinces right now.
right,
That's
right.
another thing that's happening. So you're not helping out, then we'll hire someone to help out, and you have to pay for these people who we're going to hire.
Right.
So there. So so many options actually.
And
But if he's not
when is
going
it
to,
a lost cause?
it's really, well, for me it's obvious if it's a lost cause. If they're not contributing to anything like at all, then just get them out of, put them in the line of fire of the front lines. Kick them out, get them into the non-safe spaces.
All right, let's go to number 2.
Okay, this is a
Financial
reality.
stress, of
Financial stresses,
course.
especially right now, these are things that none of us were able to anticipate. Like at the start of the quarantines and the pandemic, a lot of us had stable jobs, stable businesses. I have been talking to a lot of people who have their small businesses, and they were okay. They were doing so well, small restaurants, small cafes, or their own small businesses, small agencies. And then all of a sudden these things happened, and now they are really struggling financially. So again, using the mindset that we talked about, this is another challenge that a couple may be facing. The mindset is really, okay, partner A and partner B, you really have to team up and think about ways to address the situation. So if it's a loss of income, so how do they find other sources of income? How do they help each other out? How do they, I mean, for some people, it's probably even an option. Like if they're kids, they need to be enrolled, right? They need to be enrolled. This is the next school year. But if it's something that that's necessary for them to survive, then maybe you can postpone enrollment to next year. I mean, as long as everyone, the family is intact, everyone has food every day, then these are the things that you can work around that, yeah, with your partner. So financial stress is something that, because when you have a partner, all of the stress, it's very natural. All of the stress that you feel, if your partner, your partner loves you, it's very natural for you to express all your frustrations to your partner. And usually what how it ends up is that you're both frustrated, of course, especially if you have a good partner who also wants the survival of your family. Then you are both stressed, you may not say the right things, it might not be the right time to talk to each other, but you need to find the right time to talk to each other, and then make plans and then help each other in terms of getting those plans done. So basically that's it. Partner again with each other and tackle the problem together, because that's a reality for a lot of families right now.
Right. Again, back to the stereotyping of roles within a relationship. Are there still women who kind of expect the man to provide and
There
not
are
pull her weight,
there are
and vice
some, and
versa?
then yeah, and then there's also that's why there's that added stress for so many men thinking that they're failing
Right.
in this
Right.
situation. And the fact is they didn't even do anything wrong. It's like
Right.
they were doing the right things. They have a very good persistent personality. They were working hard. It's just that, especially those in the food industry, so many
Right. Right.
industries that are now really suffering. So it's really about partnering together and finding alternative ways.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a
And then
sad reality, but that's how it is.
and now
And finally, okay, toxic
finally.
relationship patterns. So all of the relationship situations that we talked about from 5 to number 2, these are actually the relationship situations that have solutions, or where I recommend that the partners sit down together and work through these issues together. Toxic relationship patterns, these are the ones that really need to be, uh, these are the situations where you might really have to leave your partner,
Wow.
because
Okay.
so
Good to
so these
know.
are, because these need to be said. So number one, really number one, if your partner is abusive, especially if they're
Okay.
physically abusive. And I know that you are also aware that during the quarantine there have been a lot of domestic
Right.
violence
Right.
cases. There
There's
were
a
on the
rise
rise.
in especially
Yes,
in this country.
not just in this country. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh, yeah.
I've been
Globally.
seeing statistics in the UK and the US, because they're trapped with their abuser,
Right.
and that's the problem. So um, abuse is always something that you have to leave behind.
Right.
It doesn't matter if your partner says sorry afterwards, or but then again, I understand the most dangerous, sorry to say, but one of the most dangerous things that an abused partner can do is to leave the abuser, because that's when, especially when your abusive partner has an inkling that you are about to leave, then you have to, that's mostly when they become the most violent. In fact, that's the cycle of abuse. Abusive partners are the ones who have the lowest tolerance for pain. It's like whenever they think that's why they're so jealous, they're so paranoid. You're just talking to a guy, and then in his head he thinks you're already about to leave him. That's why, and then he feels this pain, not emotionally, but he feels this as a physical kind of pain. So he retaliates physically as well. That's the psychology of the abuser. They have such a low tolerance for pain. Any inkling that their partner is about to hurt them or leave them, and that's going to be hurtful to them, they lash out instead. That's why they really physically abuse their partners. So if you are someone who is experiencing abuse right now, there are numbers to call. Actually, there are people who might be willing. I know people who are offering their
Right.
help. Like
Right.
they would say, okay, basically I'm selling makeup. Okay,
Okay.
but if you message me and inquire about this product, then it's a code for letting me know that you are being abused and you need help. And
Right.
then when I tell, so at least this person will have the right to ask you for your delivery address, your contact numbers, so that they can give the authorities your information. So
We'll
these
put all the
things.
information in the comments below after this interview. In other countries, I think in the US, you can call 911 and
Yeah.
there's a code where you're pretending to order a pizza
Yes.
and a certain like dialogue. Like if you say pepperoni, it means I'm being abused. And then you give your address so that the abusive partner is not suspicious.
Yes.
Or I
I'm
think
not sure.
in
Yeah, I'm not sure if our own, we also have that
we have something like that.
emergency number, right? But I'm not sure if they are able to do this.
Right. But we'll find
Yeah.
out. And I
Okay.
think in France, if you go to a pharmacy
Mm.
and you can like give a code word to the pharmacist,
Mm-hmm.
immediately you'll be protected and the police will
Yeah.
take action, something like that. So I hope,
So yes, these are things that. But then again, our country has so many problems. That's why I don't think there
right,
are. This is we have a protocol for this yet.
right. We'll find out and
So
we'll put the
we'll
information
find
below.
out. We'll find
So
out. So
what else is toxic
that's
besides
that's number
abuse?
one. So that really the number one is any kind of abuse. But then again, physical abuse is life threatening. So verbal abuse, emotional abuse. This is where these things come in. The gaslighting, all of these things where you know that your partner has a diagnosis. Essentially, your partner isn't just not a good person, but there's something wrong with the way your partner thinks. then you need this partner of yours needs professional help, and maybe they're not in a stage to be in a relationship with you. Okay, so all of these things, I mean, it's not, I'm not saying that you give up on your partner just because they're sick, they are emotionally sick, or they need help, they need professional help. But there are toxic situations, and if you, as much as possible, either get help for your partner or leave the situation temporarily, or both. But then again, I have to say again, if it's physical abuse and your life is really in danger, and all physical abuse, also, even if you're just at the slapping stage right
Right.
now,
Right.
that's still physical abuse. It is going to escalate. So make plans right now for protecting yourself and leaving that situation.
Right. Are there other toxic relationship patterns
Uh,
besides abuse?
that's
Or
that's basically the number one that they need to remember.
or maybe what leads up to the abuse? Like you said, if you have an inkling, what kind of behavior might you suspect to lead to something worse? Like you mentioned, gaslighting
Yes,
or
gaslighting, for those who are not aware yet. This is where your partner is able to make you doubt yourself. You know, they twist things around. Like, even if you know that they're the ones at fault, they will be able to twist things and make you feel like you're just being paranoid. Even so, they make you doubt the things that you know are true. They make you doubt yourself, you know, what you believe in and your perception, because they keep on telling you that you're being wrong, you're being paranoid. So they're planting all these ideas in you, and then when you realize that you're experiencing so much anxiety, and you are not believing anything that you're thinking anymore, then that's you have a very manipulative partner, and you need to leave that kind of relationship. That's a form of emotional abuse. So if you compare your level of self confidence and self identity, you know, good relationships will enhance who you are.
right.
A good relationship is somewhere where you feel loved for who you are, you're accepted for who you are, but you are still challenged to become a better person, because challenged and inspired to become a better person. But if you feel a lot smaller and a lot more insecure than when you started this relationship, then that's a sign that you have been experiencing emotional abuse.
Like some or many probably think that extreme jealousy is love.
Ha.
Do expound on your hand.
I actually had a Fall on the Friday episode about, is jealousy a sign of love?
Right, right.
And basically, the you know you know, a good relationship, if you want to be in a good relationship, and I know that's the dream, right? I mean, no one wakes up and says, oh, in the future I'm going to have a really toxic relationship, and then that's the dream, right? I'm going to get beat up every day. No, no one wants that. So what happens is that when you're looking for a good relationship and a good partner, you have to be the kind of person who is growing. You know who you are, and you're growing into a better version of who you are. And what you need is a partner who also knows who he is and is growing into a better version of who he is. So that's why jealousy is not really a part of that, because if a partner knows that, you know, you're a good person, you know, he chose you because you are trustworthy, you are a good kind of person who doesn't just play with people's feelings, then he knows that he won't have cause to mistrust you for jealousy. He won't have cause for jealousy. And then if he's secure in who he is, he knows that he's a good person, he's a good catch, then he won't that be easily swayed by, you know, petty things either. So it's both ways. But then again, there are those situations where I have heard, I have encountered people who actually try to make their partner jealous, to
Right.
check if their partner still loves them,
Right.
girl, you're sick. Okay, so you do not try to make your partner jealous to check if they still love you. That is what usually happens. Is if you have a good partner who has a lot of self-respect for himself, then you acting that way would drive him away because he would realize that you're not a good partner.
Right. How instead, uh, if that person wants the other one to prove their love, what do you, and you say that it's sick, what instead do you recommend? Or
Okay,
don't even ask for proof?
the thing is, here's the thing. Here's my take on that. If you have to find proof, then that means that you're not sure of his love for you, or you're the kind of person who still has these issues inside you that no proof is going to be enough. Does
Right.
that make sense?
It
It's
does.
either you're really not, you're emotionally healthy and you're just not finding proof. So you know that this person doesn't love you, so you have to walk away. Or you have wounds that you have to fix for yourself, or get a therapist so that you can help fix these wounds. Because if these wounds keep leaking, they then no amount of proof that your partner gives you is going to be enough.
Right.
I mean, so in short, if you have to ask, then there's some, if you have to ask, if you're still wondering, you're already in a relationship and you're wondering if you're loved, then
Right.
you have to talk to your partner, or something needs to get to be done, or both.
Right. We have a question here from Miss Marge Enriquez. What is my part, or how do I contribute to a toxic relationship?
Okay, so it's tolerating and enabling.
Oh,
Toxic relationships, they start out mild usually, like with the abuse. I talked to someone before who was a victim of abuse, and she had a fairy tale romance. It's like, uh, you know how in college she was the queen bee and he was a star athlete, and then they they had this romance that everyone fantasized about, and then they got married. And then at first what she noticed was that whenever, well, number one, he got angry easily, and then he would get angry because of insecurity. He would think that she was chatting with some other guy, those things, those common things. So what she realized was, the getting angry was already an orange flag, but the red flag was when he wasn't at that stage yet where he was hitting her. He was His anger was at such a level that he was always cursing cursing her. So he was always using strong words, strong language when it came to her, and his suspicions about her going out with chatting with someone else, going out with someone else. So these things. So she told me that she realized that those were actually the first red flags that you notice. The so the that amount of anger that was directed at her. And then it was only actually after they got married that he started to physically abuse her, and it got really bad. It escalated so quickly. So
right.
she you
Because
know she said if she had any advice to give to someone else, that should be a red flag. Someone who's easily angered and then really directing it at her.
do you still hear in this day and age reasons like it's really my fault that he hits me because I, whatever, feel
Yes,
trapped?
because that's part of it. The abuser, usually it's a whirlwind, super whirlwind romance, swept off your feet kind of romance. Everyone thinks he's so sweet, he's the ideal guy. And then next stage will be he will make you feel like it's you and me against the world, so that you don't really talk to your best friends or your family anymore. He would say that, oh, you have to spend more time with me because your friends, they're not going to be there forever, but I'm going to be your forever. I'm your destiny, blah, blah, blah. So isolation, that's actually the second step where, uh, especially since your best friends now have this idea that you're in an ideal relationship, then when problems start happening in your relationship, you don't normally you're no longer inclined to tell them about what's happening. It's like he has conditioned you to keep these things a secret because it's you and him against the world. So it's like you're in your own bubble. You have to fix all of your problems, just the two of you. And then whenever he does something wrong, he will apologize right away, sweep you off your feet again. And then that's the major script. It's like he would say things like, "Oh, because I love you so much, that's why I don't want to lose you. I'm so sorry. It will never happen again. I only lost my temper because I really do love you." So yeah, the usual script.
So it helps to study the modus operandi of such smooth operators. I guess we have a question from Kathleen Albes. Preventive measure. What are the things to consider so you don't end up in a toxic relationship? I guess not just the warning signs from the potential future partner, but also what can you do to make yourself stronger such that you won't fall prey.
Yeah. So basically, it really goes back to you being emotionally healthy first and foremost. The most important relationship that we have is the one that we have with ourselves. It's like that Charles Bukowski quote: "We only accept the love we think we deserve." So when you know what healthy love feels like, because you're giving it to yourself. So what is healthy love? You know what you need, and you lovingly communicate it with other people. But first of all, you know what you need. Second is you know your boundaries. You know what is what is what it what you what affection you show to your friends, to your partner, and to your spouse. So you have your boundaries. It's very clear to you what the differences are in all of your relationships, and you know what to expect from all of these relationship partners. And then third would be self-respect. You do not tolerate when someone is already minimizing your needs, invalidating you. So when you give healthy respect to yourself, you could feel it, you could sense it when someone is not giving the same amount of respect to you. So you would most likely, normally you would be able to avoid these people. So it really starts with your relationship with yourself, because again, how much respect and love you give to yourself, when you get so used to it, healthy love and respectful treatment, you know how it feels like, then you would know you would know to stay away from people who you don't get these things from.
Right.
So you won't even get them in as friends,
Right.
right? I
Maybe
mean,
if your sense of self is so developed,
yes,
you won't
that's why you
even
have to
look that
focus on
way.
that. Yes.
You won't even be attracted to someone like that, is it?
Exactly. And that person won't even be, that someone introduces this person to you and you find him really off-putting and you don't like being around this person. Those are already signs. And
Right.
but that only happens when you know what healthy love is, because you've been giving it to yourself.
Right. And yet we know of otherwise smart women who seem like they have a good sense of self. And yet,
Yeah.
I don't know if my assumption is right or not, but maybe like I know some who were so successful, otherwise a good catch, women, strong willed, independent. And then they marry a loser because they're, I don't know, maybe pressured to marry, period. Or
So yeah, success.
parang my feeling is like, they feel like, oh, pwede na yan, basta nakapag-asawa. And then, nagugulat sila kung
Oh my
mali. Can you
gosh.
still see this happening?
I would rather that they just stayed single, right? I
Right,
mean, it's
right.
better to be happy single than be miserable in a relationship. Pick a partner who makes you feel miserable. And yeah, I encounter a lot of those women as well. And what this just goes to show us is that success and intelligence in one area of life doesn't automatically translate to success and intelligence in other areas of your life. That's why we really need, growth, our self development is really a lifelong thing. It's not something that ends at a certain point. So we
Right.
really need to keep growing ourselves.
Right. Another question from Marge Enriquez. What do you mean by self-identity?
Okay. Again, knowing there's this I guess I can best explain this by telling you what it looks like when someone has no self identity. So there's this diagnosis called the borderline personality disorder, and this is usually caused by uh, when you're growing up and people have expectations of you, and your family members, mostly parents, they make you feel like if you don't live up to these expectations, then they're not going to love you. They're going to deprive you of love. Okay, so maybe your parents didn't really mean to do those things or to have that kind of effect on you, but either way, that was the message that you got growing up. So what happens is that even when you seem successful, when you're already older and supposedly much wiser, what's actually happening is your sense of what success is, what it means to be worthy of love, they're all based on what other people are saying. So that's what it looks like when you don't have your own self identity. You are doing things. You are doing things to please other people. You get stressed when someone else is angry at you because you feel like uh, it's always your fault. All of these things, you take it upon yourself. You have this thinking that if a relationship broken, it's always all your fault. So because somehow, somewhere during your growing up years, there was this message that if you don't do this, then we will not love you. And this came from the people that you depended on the most for love. And again, maybe your parents were good. Maybe your parents didn't mean to do these things, but not, I mean, most parents are not perfect. All parents are not perfect. So they might have done something once or twice, and then there's this wound here that you weren't able to address or even identify. So now your sense of what success means and what being loved means and what being loving means and what being in a relationship means, they're all based on outside voices, outside expectations, and not really based on what you have identified as your own needs, what you have identified as your own boundaries, and what you have identified as, the what you actually need from a relationship and from a partner. Does that make
Right.
sense?
It does, and we need a part two with you. Now, going back to the COVID fights, would you think that some of the fights are not really uh, what most people fight about are not really what they're fighting about? You know what I mean? Like,
Definitely. So, as a lot of times, this is the most common thing. A lot of times, partners expect each other to be mind readers.
right,
So that's the thing. You think that you've spent so many years together. You think that my partner should know this by now, but no. That's why it all goes back to that mindset where, okay, instead of blaming my partner, which is not going to work anyway, and if and you've been in a relationship for a while, you know that it never does work blaming your partner. It just escalates things. So, uh, sit down with my partner, team up with my partner, and then identify what the problem is that we need to address, and we address it together. So it's conflict resolution skills, communication skills, and that mindset that in the end, the reason why your partner is still there is that the love is there. And it's not that they want to piss you off, it's just that they don't know. And
right,
most of the time, you are also reacting. You're angry. And like you said, you're angry because of a lot of several different things, like just like with a division of labor. You're not angry. Maybe you didn't used to get angry before because you had helpers, but now that you don't have helpers, they all went back to the provinces where there's no COVID. So now you are feeling this. So you're angry because you're tired. So that's why you have to address that these things need to be done. So everything goes back to your relationship with yourself, you knowing, identifying your own needs, because you can't communicate your needs to your partner if you haven't identified them yet. You can't just end with, I'm angry, I'm pissed, I am tired of this, but what is it actually that you need, so that you can work on how to get to that end result where you are able to address those issues that need to be addressed, so that
What
the
about
anger is gone.
what if they're fighting about, like, I think a source of conflict in my own relationship was I was very, very paranoid about COVID. And so in Andre's view, probably it's extreme paranoia, but for me, it's being safe and being covering all bases. Do you see this being a source of conflict for many?
Not all.
Not all.
So essentially, the issue, if we are going to identify the issue, is how do we make sure we stay healthy?
Right. Is it an
Okay.
issue of control or loss of control?
Is it really an issue of loss of control, or how do we stay healthy? How do we make sure we stay healthy?
Right.
Okay, because control, it's not something that you would want any, either partner to have. It's uh, relationships, good relationships. You don't need to pinpoint who has more control or not, because it's a partnership. So that the actual issue is, how do we both stay healthy? So if that's the how do we both stay healthy, then sit down. You can sit down with him and then say, and then you can lay out the research of what works and what doesn't. And if you want, you can have case studies. Oh, this person just came from the grocery store, and that's actually a case. He was at home for like uh, 2 months. He went on a grocery run one time, and then he got sick. And then so if you trace back, and then that's an actual case study. What did he fail to do? What could have been done to prevent it? Then you can share that information, and then you can. It's not even about meeting halfway. It's about figuring out what works, so that we can make those our own protocols. Because it's not even a question about, do we have money for the hospital anymore? Because the fact
Right.
is, even if you had money for the hospital, will there still be space in the hospitals? I mean, the hospitals are overloaded right now, even if you had the budget, because COVID is a long term thing. Some people have had COVID symptoms for months.
Right.
So it's not something where, it's not like giving birth. You go there, you give birth, after, at the most a week, you're back home. But here, these people who got diagnosed in March, April, or in May still be in the hospitals. So there's no space for new ones. That's why we do not want to be those new ones who are going to just get turned away.
Right. And if a couple does survive the effects
Okay.
of COVID on their relationship, and they learn the skills and they learn how to fight fair and how to fight well, would you say that their relationship will become so much better and be able to
Of course.
survive future crises?
All relationships are growth opportunities. I mean, even if you're not in a romantic relationship, like you're quarantined with your parents, with your aging parents, and they're the ones who are so at risk for COVID, but they're the ones who really want to go out. And it's such a battle trying to keep them in the house. So same thing, same conflict resolution skills. You need to sit down with them. You tell them, Ma, Dad, we love you. That's why
Right.
you just stay inside the house. So the problem is COVID. It's not so. Same things. All relationships are growth opportunities. So it's not just the relationship that's growing, we're also growing.
Right. So what do you want to tell all the couples out there undergoing what we're all undergoing, which,
We're all
we never foresaw? What is the
Yes.
bottom line for relationships at the end
Well,
of the day?
bottom line for relationships, on one hand, if you are in a romantic relationship and you're still together, then remember that a lot of people don't have what you have. So take care of that. Okay. A lot of people are battling through this pandemic and quarantine alone. A lot of people are. And they can't even go back home to their parents because they don't want to put their parents at risk. So they're staying where they are. And so that's a blessing, the fact that you're not battling this alone. So
Right.
remember that yes, there is that issue of having to have, but then these people who are living alone, they have different battles to fight. One of them, and the huge one, is loneliness. But here, you know, everyone makes these choices to stay single, to be in a relationship. And if you're in a relationship, you have to remember that if you're in a relationship, someone is there on your side. So that's something that we need to remember. You are
Right.
not battling this pandemic alone. Someone chose to be on your side. So make the most out of that. Remember to be grateful for that
Yes.
because not everyone has that. And then choose growth rather than think about, oh, I'll just wait for things to normalize. Choose growth instead, because when you both develop these skills during this situation, then anything that happens in the future, you can think back to this and remember, oh, we survived the pandemic, we can do anything.
Right.
So there.
Great. Thank you so much, Aileen. We learned so much in addition to all the baking skills and cleaning skills. Add relationship skills to that list. I'm sure
Yeah.
you saved a lot of relationships today. So thank you so
I
much,
I
Aileen.
hope, yeah, even if it's just making them aware, that's enough. Because the saving actually depends on them, not on
Right.
me. The saving
Right.
depends on them.
Right. How may people get in touch with you?
Oh, okay. So uh, I have a Facebook page. Just look for Coach Aileen Santos. And every Friday at 9 p.m. Manila time, I answer I pick one of the most interesting questions that I get throughout the week because, I can't get everyone as my coachees or my clients. I do online counseling and coaching. But then for the most part, if you have general questions, you can send them to me via messenger, and then I have someone who looks through my messages. So every Friday at 9 p.m. Manila time, I answer the most common questions that I get throughout the week, and that's called Fall in Love Friday. So you can also look for that hashtag Fall in Love Friday, and they can follow me on Coach Aileen Santos.
All right. Thank you so much, Eileen.
Thanks for having me, Miss Mears.
Miss Mears talaga. Thank you again.
Okay,
We'll
thanks
do a part two.
everyone.
Bye. Goodbye, everyone. This has been Ask Miss Mears, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Bye.